It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon, a UFC 314, post-UFC 314 edition of Cageside with John Morgan. There was a lot to talk about. We were spot on a lot of them and very wrong on another. Break it all down. I'm going to bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. Follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. His name is John Morgan. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Yeah, so much to talk about, right? Like we talked about going in, it was a fun card because there were so many like different storylines, and I felt like they all played out in different fashions on Saturday night. But bottom line, that was just one of those pay-per-views when it was over, you walked away going, that was a lot of fun, man. You know what I mean? It was just a great event, and I mean, great atmosphere, obviously, in Miami, that crowd. They're a little bit late arriving crowd. They're very much like a Las Vegas crowd where they kind of only show up for the main card. But great atmosphere, great event, great fights. People took some steps forward, some stars maybe, you know, confirmed that we're in development process. So just a great event from start to finish, man.
Funny you say that, right? Because there was a number of years ago with a late arriving crowd in Miami, number of years ago when they put the whole big three together, the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, they emptied the coffers to get these three guys in, made huge splashes, and the crowd was just late arriving, even to watch these guys, right? And so they had to put out a marketing campaign back in the day. It was called Fan Up Miami.
Really?
To entice people to start showing up to the game on time because they were playing so many nationally televised games that year that it looked horrendous on national television. That it was very spotty early in the game. So they put out a whole marketing campaign being like, this is what you guys wanted. We're delivering. Now show up to the game on time.
That's too funny, man. You know, I didn't make the trip to Miami this past weekend, but I've been down there for all the other big pay-per-views, and it feels exactly like Las Vegas. But I think the parallels are there, right? There's just so much to do in Miami, right? I mean, there's so many things going on in Miami, and there's so many restaurants and bars and clubs and other entertainment options. And, you know, it's kind of a tough little traffic area down there in the downtown area of Miami. So, it's kind of notorious. I think there's a lot of things pulling for your entertainment dollars, but I didn't realize that's funny, man. It's the truth. It's the truth. But hey, they show up for the main card. That's for sure, man. They show up for the big moments. They get there for the VIP spots.
Let's start at the top of the card. And new, and once again, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, unanimous decision over Diego Lopes in a fun fight. Is that just a good way to explain it? It was fun because I think there was so much sentimental value on Alexander Volkanovski that I felt most of the people were pulling for him. Very conflicted, by the way, because everybody loves Diego Lopes.
Yeah, exactly right. I'll tell you what, I was one of those people that was in that conflicted spot, right? I ultimately ended up siding with Diego Lopes as the underdog, plus just all those stats, man, all those things about the 35-plus champions and how they perform in title fights. And, you know, it seemed like an uphill battle, but how could you not pull for Alexander Volkanovski? But yeah, fun fight. You know, maybe not the true drama of the ebbs of, like, it's not one of those classics that, like, it's going to be on the fight of the year list at the end of the year or anything like that, but a feel-good ending. I mean, if you're not cheering for Alexander Volkanovski, if you're not happy for Alexander Volkanovski getting his title back, there's something wrong with you, right? There's something absolutely wrong. He's a good dude. He's a great fighter, featherweight GOAT, and yeah, fun fight, man. Again, not one of those epic Titanic clashes that we're going to be talking about for years to come, but a happy, you know, fun way to end the card.
It was fun. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, and it was really just because I was like, I was so pulling for Volk, and that's why I was on the end of my seat. Like I try to stay biased in everything I do, but you can't help, you know, that internal dialogue in your head, right? And so I was kind of sitting on the edge of my seat. Now, before we hit the record button, we were having a conversation about the closeness of the fight.
Right.
And I'm paraphrasing, of course. You said, hey, I think that fight was a lot closer than the broadcast let on.
Yeah.
I said, I disagree with you. I want to have this conversation right now because I think that conversation is happening a little more. And what gets judged? Does aggression get judged? Does blah, 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 blah get judged. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole necessarily, but I want to hear it from you why you think that was so much of a closer fight. Why I think you believe you said it was 2-2 going into 5.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you look at the judges' scorecards. I sided with Derek Cleary in that. That's exactly the way he had it. It was rounds 2 and rounds 4 going for Diego Lopes, and that's the way I had it. So I had it 2-2 going into 5. Now, let me be clear to say that at the end of the fight, there was no doubt that Volkanovski won the 5th round, and there's no controversy.
It's no controversy here.
No controversy whatsoever.
About how we are individually watching a fight.
Absolutely. So Sal D'Amato had Diego Lopes only winning round 2. Chris Lee had Diego Lopes only winning round 4. So there was disagreement there, even in the 49-46 scorecards. So I thought it was 2-4 for Diego Lopes. And it just felt to me watching, and again, obviously I spend a lot of my life as a commentator, so I'm not necessarily trying to fault the commentators. It's a really hard job to tell stories.
Enthusiasm. They gotta narrate a story over the course.
Exactly, right? Like and so to score simultaneously at the same time is very, very difficult to do. You try to do your best and you watch a lot of fights. So I'm not trying to fault them or talk anything about them. But to them, the commentary, it seemed to me like they felt it was very, very one-sided and Diego Lopes wasn't even in the fight. I did think he was having some big moments. I thought he was landing some big shots. And we're looking at the damage, we're looking at the bigger shots. I felt meanwhile Volkanovski was having the volume, sometimes fighting off the back foot. So I thought it was 2-2 going into 5. But it was interesting because it was one of those fights to me where like the score may be even, but you feel like Volkanovski's winning the fight. And I guess maybe this can speak to my overall evaluation that I want to say this. I feel like Diego Lopes, when he watches his back, is probably going to regret some things that he didn't do, man. I feel like this fight was there for the take. And again, we're all fans of Alexander Volkanovski.
I 100% agree with that assessment, John Morgan.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week, which don't worry, we're going to get there and we're going to pat ourselves on the back.
I know Eric's never afraid to reach over and pat himself on the back, but yeah, no, it's look, man, I felt like Diego Lopes had the opportunities. I felt like he did, do some things right in rounds 2 and rounds 4, and so I thought it was even going in the 5th. But I think Volkanovski could have won the 5th. You, however, as you said right before we hit record, we were just kind of shooting the breeze as we were getting it together. You felt like it wasn't that close going into 5.
I don't. I was just looking at it, I guess, differently. I gave Diego Lopes round 4. It's the only round I gave him. And truth be told, I don't think he, by any big margin, won round 4. Round 4, let's go back. That was where Volk cut his other eye, right? And he was having a lot of vision problems. And he even said, going into round 5, he's like, my vision's back now.
Right.
I'm good. My vision's back.
Right.
Round 1, clearly Volk. Round 2, very close. And it was only because, what people, in my opinion, what people see last is what they think happened most. And Diego dropped Volkanovski on not a big shot, by the way. It was more of a, almost like a thudding shot that knocked him down. And 3, clearly Volk. 4 is where we get into the heavy discussion, in my opinion. And I just believe that strike and that elbow cut him, damaged his eye. Volk goes into pure defensive, veteran defensive mode. And you know what he does? He backs up, and he is literally jabbing the hell out of Diego Lopes as everybody thinks Diego Lopes is going in for the finish. Let's go back, and I would love to watch this back, right? Because I said it to my friends that were there the night. Alexander Volkanovski is winning while everybody thinks he's losing right now and going to get finished. He's probably hit him 10 times to 1 in that portion of when people thought Diego Lopes was going in for the finish. And then Diego Lopes is screaming, oh, let's do it now, Rich. I think that tends to sway some people. But the damage was enough, in my opinion, in a very thin margin to give him round 4. If it wasn't for that, I probably would have given Volk all 5 rounds. And I would love to hear from everybody out there. If you think I'm crazy or if you agree with me, put it in the comments. We'll respond to them. But I had it 4-1, and it wasn't that he blew out Diego Lopes. He out-savvied him to that 4-1 decision, in my opinion.
No, so there's a couple things I want to touch on. Number one, I had not pulled up UFCstats.com until you started discussing it, and I pulled it up. Statistically, if you just look at it, now, of course, this is obviously not how we judge fights, but statistically, if you look at it, it looks like it's 50-45. There's no question about it. Round 2, Alexander Volkanovski outstrikes Diego Lopes 24 of 16. Round 4, Alexander Volkanovski outstrikes him 39-16. So your point exactly right, where the volume was just increasingly there. I kind of looked at what you pointed on in round 2, the knockdown, and then the damage in round 4 as well. So I kind of looked to that. But you're 100% right. But I think what you touched on is so true, man. We talk about what veteran savvy brings you. That's that balance, right? Because the older you get, the longer in the tooth you get, the wiser you get. You kind of slow down a little bit, right? And the younger, hungrier athletes on the way up, they may be a little bit more raw. They maybe have a little bit more power, a little bit more speed, whatever. But, man, we talk about it so often. The chaos that is unfolding inside that cage. Then you put it inside a packed arena. Then you put it in, it's the moment in your life that you've been working for your entire life. How do you keep yourself calm? How do you execute? How do you not make anything bigger than it is? Alexander Volkanovski did all that. And I feel like Diego Lopes, I feel like he didn't. I feel like he froze up a little bit here, man. And I feel like there's still a lot of upside to that young man. And I feel like maybe he'll get back here at some point in a very talent-rich division. It won't be easy because it's a talent-rich division. And there's some more killers coming over from Bellator on the way, by the way. So it's not going to be easy to get back here. But he's a guy that's easy to like. He's a guy that has some skills. So that goes back to that point. Is that I always feel bad criticizing somebody that comes up short because I feel like we're taking away something from somebody who won. And I do not want to take away from Alexander Volkanovski. He broke this 35-plus curse, which is incredible.
It's remarkable what he has accomplished.
It's incredible. But I do feel like Diego Lopes is going to have some regret. And I feel like some of the blame on this result lies with him, not entirely 100% on just Alexander Volkanovski being untouchable.
John, I'm going to pat you on the back right now. I fully expect you to pat me on the back simultaneously. So
100%. There you go. There we go. A little pat.
Listen, if you guys just think that that we're blowing smoke, we're not. Go back to last week. Go back to last week and listen to our breakdown of what to expect in this fight. Where is Volk's path to victory? Where is Diego's path to victory? And why I and John were both leaning in favor of Volkanovski. And I'm going to recap it for you right now. It's because if Diego Lopes in his past couple fights hadn't started as fast as he did in his early UFC career, and I said if he does not start immensely fast, it's going to get into a traditional fight of now tactics are involved. And when tactics are involved, well, there is nobody better in this world than Alexander Volkanovski. His in and out, his reading patterns, his setting little feints, his doing everything was just confusing the hell out of Diego Lopes all night. We saw it clearly in round 1, clearly in round 2, aside from the knockdown, clearly in round 3. It saved him in round 4, and then clearly in round 5. Now, what we also said is, Diego, empty the gas tank round 1. Don't let him get this confidence. Don't let him remember what the old Volk was. And that's what his corner was imploring him to do in the rounds, but he just couldn't do it. So do I agree with you that he's going to go back and kick himself? Absolutely, because I fully believe that if he would have went in there with reckless abandon, and just kind of put the pedal to the metal, forced him up against the cage, because that's when Volk was getting hurt a lot of times, when he was back and he couldn't recenter. If he would have just done that early and often, I do think he could be the champion of the world right now. He just didn't do it. And, there's a lot left on the table right now.
Yeah, and it's understandable, right? I mean, dude, it's such a mental game, right? And I think that probably boils down to mentality, right? I don't think that tactically his corner was trying to tell him coming in, hey, we got to be, let's calm down, let's start slow. Maybe a little bit, just, hey, understand we might have to go 5 rounds. But the enormity of the moment, it's going to get to you, man. He's been on this Cinderella ride. Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest to ever do it, and Lopes is a fan of the sport. He knows exactly who he's facing, and he's seen the greatness, and he's seen what's been accomplished. You get the buildup of these huge press conferences, man, these massive weigh-in. I mean, everything. And I think the moment just got to him a little bit because, yeah, tactically, I think we were spot on, man. I think the way to win this fight was for him to be incredibly aggressive early. And the whole fight, I'm just sitting there waiting, like, okay, when do you put your foot on the accelerator? When do you just go for broke, man? You're here. You got the opportunity. You got the moment. You got to go for it, man. I'm looking at the takedown stats, and Volkanovski is 1 of 11, and Diego Lopes is 0 of 0. Where was the variety? Where was all that? And I understand that Volk is fantastic at wrestling, and there were some attempted entries. There weren't necessarily deep shots or anything like that, but I don't know, man. I just,
in my opinion, that was all tactics on Volk, right? It's like, I'm going to not let you get going. I'm not, because I'm going to come and grab really quick. And if you shuck or whatever, bam, I hit on the break, I reset, I take the center of the cage. And now you have to force that back on me, which then we get into this rinse and repeat cycle, which is just so savvy.
Veteran savvy. Veteran savvy. A lot of those
takedowns, Volk's not, he was kind of like not blasting, and he was ducking and going and grabbing and then letting get shucked out and then hitting on the break.
That's it, man. Veteran savvy, man. The execution and the veteran savvy and the calmness to execute in those moments were just on display. And like I said, I don't want this to be just a criticism of Diego Lopes. I do think he's going to have some regrets. I do think he's going to have some adjustments. And I do think maybe at some point he'll get another chance. Not necessarily with Alexander Volkanovski, but a chance to win the title. But I don't want to take away from just what a beautiful moment this was for Volk. And just how much, he openly kind of, admitted like the struggles and the frustrations and man, how difficult it was for him. And so to get this moment back, to get this accomplishment back, man, you just walk away extremely happy for the guy.
I knew in the first minute of the first round how this fight was going to go. And I'll tell you this, because I even said it last week. I said, what Volk are we going to get mentally in there? I said that the Islam Makhachev knockout changed him. And then he went into Topuria with, I don't think you can ever say too much respect, but of this maybe unhealthy, not fear, but whatever put in place of fear, because you're not scared, but an unhealthy fear because he was backing straight up. And I remember I said, he never did that. He would come off the side and whatever. And then the one time he gets, and by the way, in the first minute of that first round, boom, high and tight, blocking, boom. When he was throwing punches, he wasn't backing straight up. He did do it a couple times in that fight. Got clipped one of the times he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan was masterful pointing that out, by the way, because we pointed that out last week, that he can't make that mistake he made against Poirier, which we've never seen in his career him do. But then he just always got back center. So that time off, I don't know if it was the time off or it was the opponent. Did he not have the level of trepidation for Diego Lopes that he had for Topuria, which I think is a real question as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. It probably is. You know what I mean? It probably did assist him in his confidence and just the way he executed, feeling that way. Like, hey, I've seen this guy. Took him a long time to get to the UFC. We've seen some losses. I don't think he's necessarily as well-rounded versus, Topuria, the undefeated, marauder. Just, I think that probably played a factor into it as well. So, it's not lack of respect. I mean, they were showing respect to each other all week, and I think he did. But I think there probably was a little bit less of that. As you said, fear is not the right word, but the hesitation, the concern, the respect, maybe, it
was just knee-jerk reactions that he had that were unnecessary against Topuria, and it ended up costing him those knee-jerk reactions where he did not have those up, aside from one or a handful of times in that Lopes fight. But what's next for Volk? I mean, we're going to talk about Yair Rodriguez here in a little bit. Is he next? Who's next?
So I was thinking about this, right? Because Yair would be the easy one to make, right? Like, we'll talk about that performance in just a second, which, by the way, spot on. You nailed that in the evaluation of that as well. But Yair would be a great one, and it'd be a star-making one, easy one. Here's what I think, because I love the fact that Volk came out and was like, dude, I want to stay busy. Like, that was always his thing, right? I'm an active champion. I want to fight as often as possible. I don't want to hold up the division. And he said, give me Movsar Evloev, right? Like, he's like, give me that guy. The one guy that nobody wants, right? He's like, give me him. Here's the problem, and we've heard people talk about it, is that Movsar is not necessarily the most exciting fighter at all times. He's not the most marketable fighter at all times, but Volk is. Volk can carry the promotion of a matchup, right? He can do that. But I was thinking maybe, and it might be too long from now, but maybe you go with Volk and Mosar in Mexico City. And I know that sounds weird. Like, why would you have the Australian and the Russian in Mexico City? But the reason, here's my thought process.
That is weird.
It's weird. But here's my thought process on that one. That card's going to sell out regardless, right? Like, Mexico's still that market that only gets it like once a year, twice a year at most. And they're going to be, fired up and excited for it. And we know that the arena will be filled, even if it's not necessarily the most marketable main event. Then what you do, though, is you put Yair versus Diego Lopes in the co-main event. Now, Yair wants the title fight, but if you put it in the co-main event and then you say, listen, they had that beef all week long. We saw that rivalry that is underneath the surface. It boiled to a head, and we saw it. We saw it at the press conference. We know there's real heat there. You put that in the co-main event and you tell Yair, like, look, Yair, not only are you going to get to starch a rival, you're going to get this done, but you're also going to be on the timeline. You win one more, and you're fighting for the featherweight title. That's what I would try to do.
You guarantee it, right?
That's it. You're on the same timeline. So I that's what because what I'm looking at is a way to get that Mosar fight in, because Mosar to me deserves it. But I know the UFC is looking back and going, man, but how do we market this guy? You know what I mean? Like, how do we sell tickets? How do we sell pay-per-views? Volk can sell pay-per-views. Volk can sell, tickets. So that's what I'm thinking. But I think, look, if it's not Mexico City, then I think, as weird as it sounds, you go Yair somewhere. I mean, Yair's the more marketable guy, 100%. But you're still going to have that Mosar problem. He's there, and he deserves a title fight. So that's what I was thinking of. How do you work that in there and still make sure you have a sold-up arena?
Is International Fight Week too quick of a turnaround to maybe have Yair and in that as a co-main? Let's just hear me out. Let's say we have Topuria and Islam headlining that as a co-main. Is that too quick of a turnaround?
2.5 months. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, at least not for. It's doable. It's doable. It's challenging, but it's doable, right? I mean, everybody's healthy. Everybody's ready to go, so it's doable. It's doable in the end of June.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I do think it's a great story, and there's tremendous, like, Diego Lopes didn't lose anything in that fight other than not gaining a title. He didn't lose anything in that fight, but who did lose a lot in the co-main event was Michael Chandler, and Paddy Pimblett gained every damn thing. He called it. Not a lot of people listened, even though the Vegas odds makers did listen, but he went out there and it wasn't competitive. He put a beating on Michael Chandler like I haven't seen Michael Chandler take. Now, I'm doing what Paddy Pimblett said everybody was going to do. After he said, what are they going to say? Now, I think multiple things can be true at once. Paddy Pimblett is the real deal. He is big. His striking has come I never saw him really striking all that great, but his striking, in the King Green fight, and now he turned King Green into a grappler, right? And then now Michael Chandler, he turned Michael Chandler into a grappler in the first round, which we don't see him using his D1 wrestling all that much. Now, he is that good. He is going to be fighting a top 5 fighter, has to be. But I want to just really talk about Michael Chandler. 2-5 in the UFC now, all exciting fights, all barn burners, all ones that he has taken heavy damage. Like, as a father myself and a family man, like, Chandler, I don't want to see you as a journeyman. You're clearly not there anymore. You're a hell of a nice guy from all accounts. You're very well spoken. What's next? I don't want to. He has never taken a beating, has not taken a beating like that, but yet he has taken massive beatings. Those just took too much of a toll on him? Maybe that long time off waiting for Conor McGregor aged him a little bit, because he wasn't effective at all.
Yeah, you wonder what that 2 years between fights, between Poirier and Oliveira, waiting for Conor McGregor, you wonder what that did for him. You also listen, man, he's just getting a little long in the tooth, you know what I mean? And not like the guy's not in shape, not like the guy's not training. He obviously is. That's his life. But yeah, I don't like. I'm not planning like here's the path back for Michael Chandler to fight for a title. You know what I mean? And let me be honest, man, I'm a Michael Chandler fan, just as a fighter and a human being, man. That dude is I mean, he's the real deal, man. He's the kind of person that you would like, to model yourself after, model your kids after, like the value.
Congratulations, Michael Chandler, on the birth of a new daughter, by the way.
Yeah, unbelievable, man. So, but yeah, where does he go from here? What does he want to do from here? By all accounts, financially, he's good. You know what I mean? He's done well for himself. He made a lot of money under the Bellator banner. He's made a lot of money under the UFC banner. He's invested it well. He's created businesses. I don't think he needs to fight. I think he likes to fight. So if he were to say, hey, man, I want to walk away and call this, like, it wouldn't shock me, right? I mean, you saw him walking in with his child as he was getting older. I'm sure his kids don't want to see that. I'm sure his wife doesn't want to see that. This was total domination by Paddy Pimblett.
I don't want to see it.
I'm telling you, it's tough. So I'm never, you and I have so much respect for these athletes, right? I mean, that's why we love the sport, because we have so much respect for these athletes. So I don't think you and I are ever going to sit here and tell somebody they need to walk away. They need to be done. That's up to them individually to make the decision. But it would not be shocking to me if he said, you know what, that's enough. It's not there for me anymore. I see this next generation coming forward. And, if he wants to go out there and fight and have entertaining fights, sign me up. I'll watch it. That dude's going to be exciting every time he gets in there. It's going to be a fun fight. He's going for broke one way or the other. But it wouldn't shock me if he decides, hey, man, the best days are behind me, and I don't want to operate at a less than elite level. That's one thing we know from Michael Chandler is he's never wanted to do this just to do it. He wants to be an elite level, and I don't know that he's there anymore. So, but you say something really interesting about Paddy Pimblett, man, because you're so right. Like, by the way, I'm all in on Paddy Pimblett. I mean, first of all, the guy is a star. The way the crowd reacts. There's been all this discussion lately about, the UFC doesn't have stars. Paddy Pimblett's a star, man. You see the way the crowd reacts, the way that he is on a mic, the way that he performs. He's incredible, right? So I'm all in on Paddy Pimblett, and his next fight is going to be amazing. He's one shot away from a title, right? Whoever he fights next, that's going to be a number one contender fight, because those names all up there get it. But it is interesting, right? Because if you're a Paddy hater, or if you want to doubt, you can look back and you can be like, well, I thought he lost to Jared Gordon, and then he had to go the distance with Tony Ferguson. And then King Green, who we're all fans of, we said King Green, but is he elite? And now you're like, but it was a washed Michael Chandler. You know what I mean? You can still make the case that he's not that guy, but I'm here to tell you, I think he is that guy. And can we get some shout outs to those 12-6 elbows, bro? We've seen some 12-6 elbows since it was legalized. They were more like in the clinch position, and you're like, oh, okay, good use of it. No, this was the John Jones 12-6, you know what I mean? The nasty stuff. I love it, man. Take note to anybody. If you're in that ground and pound position, do exactly what Paddy Pimblett did right there, man. He unleashed those things. So I'm all in on the guy, man. He's a star.
He's got the physical attributes. He's a big dude. I noticed it in the King Green, and I noticed it more now. He has developed into a man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He has developed into a man in front of our own eyes, just the muscle density that he has. But what I don't think enough people are talking about is how smart of a fighter he is.
Yeah.
That guy's fight IQ is through the roof. What did he do first thing? Came out and he took Chandler's legs out from underneath him. He says, hey, listen, I'm gonna take your power away right away. What's the one shot you got at beating me, Michael Chandler? Knocking me out with that massive early power. Guess what? I'm gonna zap that right away. And he forced Michael Chandler to be a grappler, and we didn't want to get there with Paddy. Like, that's not your best path to victory with Paddy Pimblett.
Definitely not. That's not the space he wanted to be. And it's funny because you're so right. Like, this is funny to me because I've been following Paddy Pimblett's career since the Cage Warriors days, right? But just when he's out there and they put up the career record, I mean, the guy's 23-3. Like, I don't care who you're facing. That is an incredible career record, man. So unbelievable.
One of his losses, his last loss was to a 4-0 Bellator guy on the regional scene way back in the day.
Well, and it goes to show as well, man. He took his time getting to the UFC, right? Now it helped. I mean, working with Cage Warriors, they had their full support in them and all that, and they were paying him really well there. But it's that thing that you always say, like, you get it. Everybody wants to rush to the highest stage, man. Everybody wants to rush to the UFC. I see it now on the developmental regional scene now. Guys are like 5-0, 6-0, and they're like, next shot contender series, baby, put me there. And I get it. That's where the biggest paychecks are. He had a unique perspective in that he was being well taken care of in Cage Warriors because he was such a star where he came from in Europe. But getting that experience, man, it's so valuable because you see it. again, we talk about the calmness, about the veteran savvy. He's not even, a true UFC veteran at this point. 7-0, that's, 7 fights is good, but he operates like he's been there much longer. And I think it's because of that experience. And you touched on it, the awareness that he has and the knowledge that he has. He's a smart guy, man. He really is. He's a smart fighter. And look, his next fight's going to be tough. Like I said, if you want to be a Paddy hater, you can still look back and you can say, I got question marks. The next one, and I love the fact that, man, he's calling out everybody, right? He's like,
you ride if it's not Armin. I'm going to say I'm riding if it's not Armin.
See, I'm with you as well, man. I like that. I think that should be the fight to make too. And I get it. We talked about, the missed weight. I'd love it. I'd love for it to be that one. Ilia, maybe. I don't know. Would that be the fight for Ilia? I mean, especially if you're going over to Europe and doing a fight. I don't know. But I agree. I think that should be a fight. Number one contender.
Okay. So I have to touch on Ilia really quick. There has been mum is the word about that guy. So it's either he is headlining with Islam on International Fight Week, or they are making him go through Oliveira.
Yeah, 100%.
Those are the only two scenarios I see for Ilia.
And yeah, I agree. I think those are the ones that make sense for him. I mean, the dude gave up a title. They're still paying him like a champion. There's no way he gave up his belt and gave up, the pay that comes with being a champion. So you think they're going with that right away. I think that's probably it. So, but if it's not, then a fight there would make sense. Give him that.
I mean, I just think with the history, of the back and forth talk with Paddy and Armin as of late, combined with the fact that Armin might not be in the best of graces with the UFC right now.
Definitely not.
Which I read somewhere. I don't know where I read that the UFC doctor said you could fight, and he pulled himself. Which may be the reason they're actually more PO'd, but I don't know if that's true or not. I read it.
I haven't heard the full the full account, at least from the UFC perspective. I've heard it from his perspective, and it's like, I couldn't fight, but he never really says. But the way the UFC reacted to it, you know what I mean? You got to think there was something in there where they thought, and I think we talked about it at the time. I mean, the reaction when you see Dana's reaction to it. If he was really ruled medically ineligible, they just be like, well, what can you do? But he's like, nah, I'm not doing that right away. So there's something to that.
Yeah. So I think Islam sits, and if I fantasy book this is what I would like to see. I see Islam sits for a little bit. Then you put Ilia and Oliveira together. You put Paddy and then that timeline wouldn't make sense. Ilia's getting a title shot.
I think so. I think that's what they do at International Fight Week.
Armin for the number one contender. And then, Oliveira, he's always going to be right there. They could throw him in on anything. So,
yep.
That's what it is. But hey, we got to go back down this card because your boy John Silva absolutely throttles the daylights out of Bryce Mitchell, who I don't think fought bad. I thought he fought really, really well. My whole thing going into this is why I was leaning Bryce Mitchell, not for my personal admiration for Bryce Mitchell, minus everything he said, but as him as that my experiences with him. I've seen him fight. I know the savviness that he has. I know the elite level grappling that he has. I know that he's taken everybody he's wanted to the ground. And I know he's fought at the highest level. We haven't seen that out of Silva yet. And so that was why I'm just saying, listen, this is a crazy line. I have to go lean slightly with Bryce. Silva way outstruck him. He nearly finished him in with that same ninja choke in the first round. And then gets that ninja choke in, the second round. Second round. I mean, and that ninja choke was nasty. Bryce couldn't roll out of it or he would have broke his own neck.
Yep.
Then he goes unconscious.
I tell you what, man. We talked about John Silva and the rise he's on. Like I said, I already had him in my rankings prior to this. I think he'll definitely appear in the official UFC rankings this week, but I already had him in one
top 10 now, right?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, I had him there. I had him at number 15. So he's going to be around there. But he's a star. He's marked again. The UFC is short on stars. This dude's a star, man. The way the crowd reacted to him. But the style in which he won was more impressive. I think had he clipped and shut out Bryce's lights, right? You go, okay, well, maybe the chin's not there for Bryce anymore. We saw what happened with Josh Emmett, maybe. But this, to essentially beat him at his own game, man, to choke him unconscious with that ninja choke, as you said, just absolutely beautiful technique. Nearly had it once. It's not like he just fell into the position. I mean, he created it. It's unbelievable work. I think this guy's the real deal. He's a star. He's people are all over him, man, and they're excited about him. And I just the way he won this fight, I still think, look, maybe in retrospect the line wasn't crazy, but it looked crazy to me. And I'll tell you what, we weren't the only ones that felt that way because the market reacted the same way, man. Like when we were first talking about at the beginning of the week, he was like plus 290, right? And it came down quite a bit. So I think a lot of people felt the way we did. But I just think John Silva, you can't deny that guy. Now you get to the top of that division again. We're talking about title fights and all the names that are up there and all that. There's still some roadblocks and some hurdles. But this dude, man, he looks like he has all the skills necessary to be at the elite level of the sport.
All right. We already talked about Yair a little bit about what's next for him, but we pegged that fight. This is surprising. I had not a bunch of people. I had my wife, my buddy Mike, and my neighbor over, and then their wives. And both of them are big MMA fans. The other two guys are both big MMA fans. Neither one of them had seen Pitbull fight. Wow. They know his name, they read, but they just wouldn't watch Bellator like they would watch the UFC. So they had never seen Pitbull fight. And listening to Anik and DC and Rogan, I almost think that they had never seen Pitbull fight either because they were like, he's usually reckless. I'm like, he's never that way. Like the way he fought that night is the way he always fights. And that's why I said this has the ability. He is more on the boring spectrum until he's not.
Yeah, no, I thought you nailed it going into this, man. And I think you're right. Listen, man, as a longtime man, an MMA junkie that saw the traffic reports and understood, like there are a lot less people watching whatever the number 2 promotion is than the number 1 promotion, right? It's not even close, right? So I think your friends are like a lot of fans. They don't watch anything but the UFC, and that's understandable. But I thought you nailed it and spot on. And I did kind of wonder with the commentary. I'm like, how much of it is that? Did you watch highlight reel? Because if you cut together a highlight reel of Patricio Pitbull, you can make him look like an absolute marauder, right? Like this. Because when he throws, man. And he's beautiful with his technique. He's got power, but he doesn't do it a lot. There's not a lot of volume. And I thought you nailed it going in. And it really was why. I don't know if the UFC did this intentionally or it was just like, hey, we need to get a fight for Yair. And, I don't know that necessarily they were trying to send a message or do anything like that. But I think they
put him in a favorable matchup, favorable in the standpoint of like who's going to force the action out of Pitbull.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Yair is going to force the action. So that's why this was a tough matchup for him. But just because the size of Yair, Yair is a tough matchup for anybody. Let's just be honest, man. He just does different things than anybody else. But this was a tough matchup for Patricio Pitbull. I don't know what the ceiling is in the UFC for Patricio at this point, man. It's he's joining late. There's no question about it. He's joining late in his career, but happy for him. It looked like he's really enjoying the experience. I mean, you've seen it. You've been behind the scenes of a UFC show, man. It's different. It's just different, than anything else on the planet. And I'm glad that he's getting to enjoy this opportunity. It seemed like he had a lot of respect for Yair. It seemed like he was. As they were kneeling afterwards, it sounded like he was saying, like, hey, go get your belt, man. Like you're that guy. Like, so I love seeing that. But this was a tough matchup for Patricio. And yeah, to your point, man, I thought, kudos to you. I know you don't mind a little pat on the back sometimes, but as you were breaking it down and talking about, we'll give you a little pat right there. I thought you nailed it, in the build up to it. It was clear that you had seen plenty of Patricio Pitbull fights because he fought like Patricio
every one
Pitbull.
Of his Bellator and even cross promotion Ryzen fights and. Because I'm a fan of his, but I have to understand that I have to lug through the mud until I get the moments I want.
That's it. Like again, look, man, those guys do their homework, so I'm not trying to criticize them, but it felt to me like maybe they had only seen the highlight reels and not actually, which I get it. If you're watching 24, 26, 28 athletes, whatever the case may be, and you're trying to do all your research, you're not going to be able to go back and watch all of their entire library and catalog going in. And if you're a UFC commentator, you're watching a whole lot more UFC fights than you are Bellator fights. But I kind of felt the same way that I'm like, why are they trying to implore him into something that he doesn't do?
it's serendipitous because I'm telling my friends, I'm like, this could be a boring fight. Like Pitbull doesn't throw a lot. He doesn't do this. And, and then the guys are on the broadcast. He's all action all the time. He's coming in to take your head off. We're reckless abandon. I'm like, huh? What?
In moments.
Yeah.
In spots.
Yeah.
Hey, I thought you nailed that one. And oh, by the way, and you've been singing it for a while too, man. Dominick Reyes. Dominick Reyes, right? Listen, man, I think you have been driving the Dominick Reyes train. You've been saying, hey, hop in, boys. We're running out of seats on here. A lot of people jumped off the bandwagon, but we got a couple left if you want to jump on. That dude went out and delivered.
Dude, biggest high-profile spot, high-profile opponent, and off of 2 massive victories that he needed that got that confidence back rolling, but they were undercard fights. He was on the undercard. Yep. Now he's opening up the main card, and it's either the UFC either saw what I saw with Dominick Reyes to put him in that spot, or they saw, Krylov as gonna just ice him. I don't know which one they saw, but they put a perfect fight on the opener of the main card, and it delivered spectacularly. Dominick Reyes is back. Dominick Reyes, in my opinion, is a top 5 light heavyweight in the UFC based off of what he had done, had some injuries, started pressing, wanted to get it all back right away, and it cost him. He's a little more wiser. He's slowing down a little bit. He knows he's got the power. He knows he has the athleticism. Let's not press anymore. Let's have somebody run at me and I knock him the hell out. Right?
He had this mantra that he was saying all week, and he said it immediately in the post-fight interview, and I loved it. He's like, I'm not back. I'm better. I love that, right? You know what I mean? But you talk about the injuries that he dealt with and, what Dominick Reyes went through in his career. We always talk about the psychology of the sport and what it does for you, right? I mean, now, look, I feel like I'm almost in the minority that I did score the fight with John Jones for John Jones, but like narrowly, like had that fight gone the other way, I wouldn't have been like, oh, what a robbery. Like it was damn close, right? But watching it live, I scored it for John Jones. But to be that close, to not only being a champion, but unseating the GOAT and being the dude that beats the unbeatable, right? And this is 2020 John Jones, right? I mean, I still think John Jones is the GOAT and the unbeatable guy, but back then, that was the height, right? And so to be that close and to have it all taken away and how life-changing that would have been, you know what I mean? Financially for you, reputationally. I mean, your entire life changes if that scorecard goes the other way.
And then he goes Yuri. Then he goes Ryan Spann. When Ryan Spann was, I thought, almost going to be a guy who was on the cusp of a top 5. That was when I was singing Ryan Spann's praises.
100%. You had Jan Blachowicz in there as well. So it's like, that man was just like mentally defeated, man, and I get it, man. It was kind of been into a tailspin, and now he is back, man, and this was a big step for him. Now again, there's still some bigger names up at the top of the division that could give him some problems, but his athleticism, man, and his experience at this level, he is going to be a problem at light heavyweight. So yeah, if anybody had written the guy off, you made a mistake, and I understand why you would. I mean, if you just look on paper, you look at the results, but then when you really dig into understanding the journey that this guy has been on, man, and the difficulties he's had to go through and how his life, I mean, how could you not be bitter? Like, how could you not walk away from the John Jones fight and just like lament and be angry and be bitter? And he's kind of admitted that, and it got to him, you know what I mean? But now he's like, hey, put that all behind, move past it. It's a new time. It's a new era. This dude can be very problematic in the division. You said top 5. I'll be really interested to see where he comes out in the rankings as well. But his next fight is going to be a big one, man. There's no question about it.
I'm not saying he should be ranked in the top 5.
No, but you're saying skill-wise. You're saying skill-wise and where he can perform.
Like what I would love to see. Like I would love to see him and Jamal Hill. That's where we're going to say who's going to be in that now solidified top 5. Who is going to be able to contend? We got Yuri with, in my opinion, Jan's still there. Who else is in the top 5?
You know who I'm thinking of? Here's what I'm thinking. How about him and Carlos Ulberg? Ulberg's number 3 right now because Jamal is lined up with Khalil Roundtree. And the only reason I say, maybe Ulberg is because I could see, right now you look at it. Obviously, you got Magomed Ankalaev as the champ. They're going to do the rematch with Alex Tejeda later this year. You got Yuri Prochazka, but he's already fought Yuri Prochazka. Carlos Ulberg is kind of that new name that's up there at the top that needs a big test as well. I think maybe that's the way you go. If you look outside of that, it's Jamal Hill at 4, but like I said, he's lined up with a Roundtree. Jan Blachowicz, he's already fought Jan Blachowicz. You got Alexander Rakic as well. Rakic is a fresh matchup you could potentially do. So there's a couple options, but he's up there. He's top 5.
I think for saying Jamal Hill is because I think Jamal Hill is that tweener right there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that's why I'm just saying, like, I knew his dance card was already full, but I think that's really going to be the tipping point of, is Dominick Reyes a top 5, and perennial contender, or is he not? And I think, anyways, listen, who said it? Alexander Volkanovski said it, and it definitely applies to Dominick Reyes. I'm going to paraphrase. I forgot exactly what he said, but his adversity is a blessing. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
They went through it and they're coming out the other side. Now, Alexander at the highest end, Dominick Reyes is getting there, but I love rooting for guys that pick themselves back up and, they say, let's go back to the drawing board, man. Let's heal. Let's take some time off. I know I have the mentality. I know I have the heart. Now I just need to dedicate it, and I need to get that juju out of my head, and let's go, because he's shown it. Dustin Jacoby. And then who was his last fight? I forgot who it was.
Anthony Smith.
Oh, Anthony Smith, Jacoby, and now, and now this fight. The guy's got every tool you would want. Like, let's make a prototype. Outside of maybe the hairline, he's got everything. And maybe the hairline is why I like him too. Oh yeah, man, he's one of us. He's one of us.
Oh man, I love it, man. No, I agree, man. He's got a big fight coming up next, and it's a good story, man. It's so easy to quit on yourself, man. It's so easy to get down, and like I said, to be that close to the top, to have it snatched away from you, and then to just plummet off dude, that career, man, it was sad, man. It was sad where it went down, and so to pick yourself up, man, like you said, and to just realize, like, man, it's a lesson in life, right? You got to teach your kids, right? Like, ain't nobody coming to help you. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody coming to help you out there. You better get there and do this yourself, man. And he did it, and he went back, as you said, and kind of reinvented everything. And he's in a new mindset. And again, that's why I loved it. He said, I'm not back, I'm better. Sometimes people get these little mantras and you're like, that's kind of cheesy, but he said it all week and he said immediately, I'm not back, I'm better.
Anthony Smith as well.
Yeah. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. So great stuff, man. Great big win. That was like I said, this main card. I mean, look, there were highlights up and down this thing. We normally don't sit there and break down every single fight all the way, but you could. This was one of those fight cards that had so many storylines, so much entertainment. The grappling heads and us had to love the Chase Hooper and Jim Miller. I mean, there was some fun exchanges in there. Man, Darren Elkins broke my heart. That was a hard one to watch, man. And I love Julian Erosa. He's a Vegas guy. Julian Erosa, another guy that's had to go through so many difficult stints, outside of the promotion, that sort of thing. But watching Darren Elkins, that was a tough one.
I saw a Facebook post that said that Beltran caught a charge for that.
Boy, he let him go through it.
Listen, do not judge a book by its cover with Mike Beltran.
No, that is the best.
It was the first time I met him a few weeks ago in Vegas. I'm telling you, I was almost intimidated because he just puts on this presence and he's a towering figure. He's like, I've seen you on TV. Like, I know all about you. He gives me a hug. I was like, wow, this is a nice freaking guy. Like, sweetheart of a human.
Nicest human being ever, man. He really is. He always, makes a point to say what's up when he's working in Vegas or where it shows together and talk real quick. Come over and shake the hands. He's a great dude, a great official for sure, man. One of the best in the game. It's one of those. It's something. So with Darren Elkins, I always think about this, and maybe you can weigh on this. And boy, there were some refereeing controversies, some decisions. You know what I mean? I know it's a tough spot to be in, but I always wonder this one. And Darren Elkins, I think, now fits this description for me. I think the first person that I really thought about this was with Diego Sanchez. And I wonder sometimes if, as an official, is it better to be knowledgeable of the athlete that you're overseeing, or perhaps not. Because what I think happens, and again, it used to be Diego Sanchez, and I think it's Darren Elkins now, where we've seen this guy go through wars and continue to fight, that maybe sometimes, since you know these guys, like there's no way if you're an official, like if you're an official at the highest,
I know exactly where you're going with it.
You know, say like if you're an official at the highest level, you better know who these guys are. But sometimes I wonder if you end up giving them a longer leash than you should, simply because you know that you've seen them in these particular situations before, and if maybe you should try to get that out of your mind, that this is not Darren Elkins / Diego Sanchez. This is just the fighter whose safety I have been entrusted with on this particular afternoon.
A lot of these conversations happen in the private rules meetings. Okay. So they're not privy. A lot of people aren't privy to the conversations. I could go down the list of like, hey man, let me go out on my shield. And I'm like, no, right. I won't. But if you listen to my commands and you make efforts and you're knowledgeable what's coming at you and from where, and you can at the same time hear me saying, move, make an adjustment, do whatever, then I'm more than willing, because then I can, in good conscience, back up my decision to either end it or let it keep going.
Right.
So with all that being said, with that stoppage, it's hard to watch. Let's, be honest.
It was. And I like it.
Am I going to pile on Beltran? No, I'm not. One, because this guy has been in there probably more than, listen, aside from he works every damn weekend now with either UFC, PFL, Bellator, whatever, he's working all the time. So he's reffing probably more fights than anybody currently, right? He also cut his teeth working, King of the Cage.
Yeah.
This guy has ref probably 10,000 fights in his day.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's an LA County sheriff. It wasn't undercover in LA County sheriff, right? This guy's seen some shit. Okay. He commands a presence, and I've been in rules meetings with him. I shadowed his rules meeting before, right? And this is what he says. When we're talking, he says, follow my directions at all times. So, albeit these guys are reffed up, we can't hear the ref a lot of the times. So right. If he's saying like, you have to move, or you have to do something, or even if subtle moves, like give me a subtle move. If that was still happening, he's gonna let him take a little more, because we don't know what was talked about in that rules meeting.
Yep.
And a lot of the times those things are worked out there. Now, if you're going to ask me, do we take past precedent? I don't think the answer is yes, but I think you do. I don't think you could consciously come out and say, no, like everything's on an even playing field, this, that, and the other. And I've told this story on here before, and I'll tell it again. I watched a kid who I thought almost died in a cage one time. He got knocked out so bad, he was out unconscious for a whole time. I didn't see him breathing for a hot second when he got knocked out. Came to fairly quick, but it was a tremendously scary knockout. Then I was reffing him in a CFFC fight. And I stopped it when he went down and took 2 follow-up shots. He pops up and he's very upset with me. And I said, listen, when you go down the way you do, I said, move, move, move. You took 2, 3 unanswered punches. You didn't move. I got to stop the fight. I gave you the instructions. You did not adhere to my instructions. But am I going to lie to you and say what happened in his previous fight did not impact my decision there? It 100% did. It 100% did. I wish it can go back and say it didn't, but it did. Okay. I even got accosted by his family up by the bar, in Tunica.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was up there during the intermission talking to somebody. I got rushed by his family. They were pissed off at me. And his mom was yelling at me, blah, 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 blah. And I just grabbed her and I calmly looked her in the eyes. I said, ma'am, were you at your son's last fight? She said, yes. And I go, I was the ref. He stopped breathing. I never want to see your son hurt like that ever again. She started crying and hugged me and thanked me for stopping the fight when I did. So that's a long way of saying is you shouldn't, but we are humans.
Yeah.
Like we have either of like, hey man, this is a dog, I'm going to let him keep going. Or there's a level of compassion that we innately have. And
to your point, man, Darren Elkins was, I mean, even if he was fighting on instinct, which it appeared to, he just has that natural dog instinct in him. He did continue to move. And that kind of leads towards, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk and Cedric Dumas, that stoppage there. And again, it was Mark Goddard. You're talking about one of the absolute best in the world. And it was funny because it was one of those stoppages where I didn't love it, but immediately when Cedric Dumas, when he protested it, Goddard looked at him and said, I told you 3 times. He's like, I told you got to move 3 times and you didn't move. What am I supposed to do? You got knocked down. Replay showed maybe the blow wasn't as clean as we initially thought, but you saw the way the body reacted and the way he fell. It looked like it landed a lot cleaner than it did. And then to Mark Goddard's point, he's spot on. You're covered up, but all you're doing is covering up, and the shots are landing. I tell you 3 times you need to move, and you didn't move. And so it looked a little bit controversial. Like, I didn't love the stoppage, but I totally understood the stoppage, and I didn't look at Mark Goddard as he made a poor decision. And I think Cedric has actually come out and said on social media, I get it. I should have. You make a great point about the referees being mic'd up. It's funny because, I think of, from the production side, like college wrestling, when we did college wrestling with CFFC, like that referee mic is so important, right? Because the referee in college wrestling is really dictating everything that's happening, right? I mean, they're keeping you alert to what's going on, that sort of thing. I wish, and I know you got 3 people in the booth already talking, you got the crowd going, and so they have the ref mic'd up and they record it, and they have it on audio so they can use it for future, packages or whatever. But I do kind of wish there was a little bit more, maybe you keep the voice down. You don't want it to be overwhelming the commentators and that sort of thing. But I think that would assist in a lot of the quote unquote controversial stoppages where you're like, well, I heard him say 3 times, you got to move, and he didn't move. So there's no controversy.
And the jump up protest, I hate that, guys. But anyways, with that being said, I want to take you back to Jalen Turner and King Green. Remember that atrociously late stoppage? Kerry Hatley should never ref again, ever, who did a spectacular job in the co-main event, by the way.
Absolutely.
The worst ref in the world. I called Kerry Hatley. Remember, I called him. I said, hey, man, how you holding up, man? And he's like, dude, I'm doing okay. He's like, it sucks. It's a learning moment. And I said, well, I said it on this podcast, I don't think it was a tremendously late stoppage. The optics were bad, but I don't think it was a tremendously late stoppage, for the simple fact is I could only envision what Kerry Hatley was saying, and I was watching King Green build up.
Right.
Not build up. So he's saying, King, you got to move. Mo, you got to move, or I'm going to stop fighting. He's building up. He gets knocked down. Building up. He gets knocked back down. But I talked to Kerry Hatley. And Kerry Hatley was telling me, no, he was talking to me. He was saying, I'm good. He was talking to him, and then he went unconscious. Then he stopped it. So there is so much more going on that an official sees and hears that nobody else does. Nobody, and then we don't. And then in a blessing and a curse, we don't have the platform to say it.
Yep. Yeah. I know. I understand that too. I hate it sometimes, but I also understand it why. The officials aren't allowed to speak to the media or to go on social media, whatever the case may be. I get it why the commissions would be like, man, we don't need this. But I wish there was an opportunity for the officials sometimes to defend themselves. Because I think obviously I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of these guys and to have off-record conversations with them. And I know how passionate they are about performing at the best and learning and studying and executing and evaluating and looking at their own things and I think sometimes it's just easy to be like, oh, these officials don't care, they just show up and they don't worry about what's going on, when that is anything but the case, man. They're wringing their hands afterwards. I do right, what could I have done better, et cetera, et cetera. Not to say that poor decisions aren't made. That's every human being on the planet in everything that they do, but sometimes I think people are too quick to write out these officials as not caring about what's going on when they actually do.
Well, and I'm going to put like a tier system to a referee. Like I think you have your tier 1 refs, which are going to be like the Mark Goddard, Jason Herzog, throw Beltran into there, and Jason Herzog, right? Kind of those guys. Tier 2, albeit could be tier 1, but some reason don't get calls or whatever. Is you're going to have your Blake Grice's, your even Kevin McDonald, Mark Smith. Tier 2 refs, and then there's the fringe tier 3, almost tier 2 refs, which I would put myself in a tier 3 ref just from a notoriety standpoint. And then you have your plethora of regional referees, right? Tier 2, Keith Bearstein as well, clear tier 2. But from a standpoint, like, I don't know if you guys realize, like, I'm talking to these guys all the time. We're studying all the time. We're not in this position out of listen, I have no fame out of this. I'm in it for the love of it. I love this game, and I hope it comes across here on this podcast. I love this sport. I love this game. But I can tell you with certainty the amount of studying I do on this stuff, breaking down fights. I've even gotten to a point where I'm starting to telegraph reads so I can expect what's coming up. I'm seeing patterns in the ring. And that's why even Volk, I'm like, oh, he's about to uncork. I can start reading patterns because I study so much to be the best official I can be. So I can almost promise you that Beltran was saying, hey, you got to move. You got to move. He's moving. I can almost promise you that conversation was had in the rules meeting prior to the floor. If I get rocked, don't worry. I'm going to keep fighting. Don't stop. He's like, well, as long as you're following my instructions, I will not stop it until it gets to a point where I have to stop it regardless of what you are doing. I can promise you that conversation happened. And we saw it play out exact that way. And then Beltran was saying, okay, enough is enough. Even though you're still doing what I'm asking you to do, is at least make an effort. And now it's upon me to save you from yourself. And so I listen, it's hard to watch, but it seemed like Elkins was in a frame of mind to keep doing what he was doing. Beltran was clearly talking to him. And listen, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do in that standpoint? Yeah.
No, I don't have a problem. It was tough to watch, man. Darren Elkins, man, I love that guy. He's a great dude, and he's put on some wars over the years. Tough to watch, but I didn't have, I think, as much criticism as a lot of people did. He was moving, and that's what you have to do. You have to do what the referee is instructing you to do. So, man, like I said, fun card. Sit here talking about forever.
I wish people heard these rule meetings.
Absolutely. I think that would be beneficial too. I think that would be very beneficial for people's understanding. To know what instructions have already been laid out there.
Yeah. And every ref is different, but every ref usually starts with, hey, you got anything you want to talk about before we go into there? Before I get started? And then undoubtedly it's either like, hey, this guy really does this. You better watch it. Got it. I'll watch it. Or, hey, man, if anything happens, like I can fight on. Just let me keep going.
Let me go out of my shield.
Well, I will if you're following my instructions, and we'll get there. So with that being said, man, refs have a tough job, man. It's a tough job. It's going at 100 miles an hour, and there's verbal, there's nonverbal cues, there's so many things, and then you have a plethora of changing rules depending on what jurisdiction. Oh, whatever.
I hate that. That's one where you could just spend a whole show talking about that. We got to get the unified rules unified, man. I hate the fact that officials have to make a decision, like they're watching everything. As you said, it's so chaotic, it's so fast, and then you got to think, and wait, what jurisdiction am I in right now? Like, come on, man, the rule's the rule. Like that's got to be.
I had a conversation with Tennessee about this, and I'm giving a rules meeting, and he's like, the commissioner or the deputy commissioner, or whoever it was, pulled me aside. He's like, hey, we haven't adopted that yet, the 12 to 6 elbows. And I'm like, well, you guys voted on it. He's like, yeah, but it hadn't passed legislation or anything yet. He's like, so our position is, whatever you decide, and if the promotion agrees with it, we'll let it happen. Oh, okay. So I could just make up anything at this point.
It's frustrating, right? It's just, and that's the way the rules work, and that's the way the process works. You know what I mean? So they're doing exactly what's right, but it's like, come on, man, let's get everybody on the same page. What state line we're sitting across shouldn't matter.
Well, and I think there's so many egos in this game too.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, you probably know better than I do on that.
I've seen it. The politics behind the scenes sometimes are a little frustrating.
Yeah. So anyways, with that being said, we've run a little long getting into our off-topic conversations, but for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.